High in the rainforest canopy, a carpenter ant spends her life following a very specific routine. She walks established trails, communicates with her sisters through scent, and carries food back home to the nest. She is an ordinary worker, doing exactly what she was born to do. But then, a microscopic spore from the zombie ant fungus lands on her shell. It doesn't kill her right away. Instead, it softens a patch of her armor and slips inside. For several days, she keeps working. She looks like herself, but the fungus is quietly growing through her body, feeding only on the parts it doesn't need to keep her moving. Eventually, she starts to lose her way. She drifts off the trails she has followed her whole life. She grows twitchy and wobbly. Then she begins to climb, not up toward her home, but down toward the forest floor, driven by an irresistible urge to leave her colony behind. She reaches the low leaves, just above the ground. She crawls onto the underside of a leaf and bites down on a thick vein with every bit of strength she has. Her jaws lock. They will never open again. This is her final act. From the outside, this looks like a series of choices, as if the fungus hijacked her brain and drove her like a car. But when researchers looked inside, they found something unsettling. The fungus was everywhere in her body, but it hadn't touched her brain. The control center was perfectly intact. If the brain is still there and still undamaged, who is steering the ant? To find the answer, we have to look past the brain and open up the ant's body like a machine to see what's actually moving the parts. The infection is massive. In some cases, nearly half of the ant is actually fungus. It has replaced 40% of her body mass with its own cells. This diagram shows the true layout of the fungal takeover. The fungus has grown into an interconnected mesh that wraps tightly around the muscles in her legs and jaws. But notice the head. There is a distinct, completely empty zone. The fungus has bypassed the brain entirely. Instead of sending fake signals through the nerves, the fungal network acts as one coordinated machine. It moves the ant by tugging on the muscles directly, like a hand sliding inside a puppet. The ant's brain is just a passenger, watching its own legs walk toward a destination it didn't choose. To lock the jaws, the fungus uses a mechanical trick. Healthy muscles are built from microscopic sliding parts that contract and release in a smooth rhythm. This is what allows the ant to open and close its mouth normally. But the fungus physically jams this machinery. It wedges itself between those sliding fibers, forcing them to squeeze together as hard as possible until the internal scaffolding breaks. The muscle is forced into a clench so total that it becomes frozen in place. This death grip isn't a choice or a matter of willpower. It's a one-way mechanical trap. The fungus has physically removed the reverse gear, ensuring she stays bolted to that leaf long after she is dead. There is one more detail that makes this even stranger: the timing. When scientists tracked these infections, they found that the ants don't fight at random. They all lock their jaws at almost exactly the same time, solar noon, when the sun is highest in the sky. How does a fungus, with no eyes to see the light and no brain to track the hours, coordinate a perfectly timed midday attack across the entire forest? The fungus doesn't need to see the sun because it targets the ant's internal clock. Nearly every living thing has a molecular timer that tracks the cycle of day and night. In this animation, we can see the ant's timer and the fungus's timer ticking at different speeds. Days before the final bite, the fungus begins releasing chemical signals that force the ant's internal timer to shift. It is rewiring the host's clock to match its own schedule. When the two timers finally peak together at solar noon, it triggers the command to bite. The timing is inescapable. The fungus doesn't need a brain to tell time. It simply weaponized the biological clock the ant already had, turning a natural rhythm into a countdown for a scheduled execution. Pulling back, looking at where the ant ended up, we see none of this was an accident. Every step, the climb, the exact height, the final bite, was part of a physical blueprint designed by the fungus. The ant always stops exactly 25 centimeters off the ground. This specific zone has the perfect temperature and humidity. By locking the ant here, it is sheltered from rain and positioned directly above the colony's trails. Once the ant is completely dead, a long, dark stalk rapidly pushes out from the back of her head. It releases a rain of new spores, drifting down onto the paths where her sisters still march. Over time, these infected ants create graveyards. Dense clusters of corpses hanging from leaves, each acting as a spore factory pointed at the ground. This changes the map of the entire forest. Healthy ant colonies are forced to abandon their old routes and find new ways to travel, treating these patches of leaves as zones where they simply cannot go. This is what a network can do without a single thought. It can steer a body, time a precise attack, and displace a society by growing in the right shape at the perfect time. Control doesn't always come from a mind. Sometimes it's just a matter of engineering.